Pakistan under fire for its mass deportation plans. Islamabad says about 3 million Afghan refugees and migrants must leave the country this year. It cited security concerns, but are they founded? And what future awaits those deportees in Afghanistan? This is Inside Story. Hello there, I'm James Bays. Pakistan says it plans to deport roughly 3 million Afghan refugees by the end of the year. It's the latest phase of a nationwide crackdown to expel foreigners, whether they're living there legally or illegally. The government says it all boils down to national security. Tensions have surged between Afghanistan and Pakistan since the Taliban regained control back in 2021. But rights groups say deporting refugees will make a dire humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan even worse. There's also the issue of women and girls. If deported, many of them would face the Taliban's harsh restrictions for the first time. We'll get to all these issues with our guests in a moment, but first this report from Katia Lopez-Horia.
Most of the refugees and migrants living in Pakistan are from Afghanistan. By the end of the year, the government says it plans to deport roughly 3 million of them, even those living there legally.
We are Afghans, but we were born and raised in Pakistan. If we go to Afghanistan, we'll be strangers in our homeland, without family, friends, or a place to call our own. In Pakistan, we have a life, a community, a sense of belonging.
Afghans have been forcibly relocated to camps like these in the town of Landi Kotal before they're deported. Rights groups are urging Pakistan to stop the move, warning it will fuel a humanitarian crisis across the border.
We urge Pakistan to treat Afghans with kindness so that we can continue living here in peace without resentment or hardship.
In Afghanistan, women and girls would be subject to severe Taliban restrictions on education, employment, movement, and access to public spaces.
The other major, I think, concern is the security and education, particularly education for kids and for girls. You know, most of the Afghans who are in Pakistan, they have been assimilated in the system. Their children are getting educations, their women are getting educations.
In recent years, armed groups have carried out attacks in Pakistan. The government says they operate from Afghanistan, an accusation Kabul denies. But it's led to tensions between Islamabad and Taliban leaders. America's 20-year war in Afghanistan adds further complications. Many Afghans fled when the Taliban regained control in 2021. About 20,000 were approved for resettlement in the U.S. for working with American forces. They've been waiting since, perhaps in vain. President Donald Trump recently paused U.S. refugee programs, leaving many in limbo. Pakistan says it recognizes the social struggles across the border, but it insists the deportations will protect its national security. And this has left millions of Afghans unsure of what to do or where to go. Katia Lopez-Horia, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Well, let's start our discussion and discuss all of those issues with our guests today. In Kabul, we have Waleed Karyab. He's a human rights activist and former official at Afghanistan's Education Ministry. In London, Horia Mosadiq, the executive director of the Conflict Analysis Network, a human rights research organisation. And in Islamabad, Imtiaz, executive director of the Centre for Research and Security Studies, an institute that focuses on security, radicalisation and governance. Thank you, all of you, for joining us today on Inside Story. Let me start with you, Imtiaz, because I have followed this subject very closely for a long time, and I've read a lot about it, again, preparing for today's programme, and I still can't get a proper number. How many Afghans are there in Pakistan?
In Pakistan, there are about 2.5 million Afghans, and including about 875,000 who had entered Pakistan after the Taliban took over power in August 2021. And the 875,000 Afghans are currently the focus of the current drive of expulsion, because most of them had entered into Pakistan with IDs, which are called Afghan citizenship card, which most of which are not genuine. And the primary objective of the current drive was to document every single Afghan that is living in Pakistan.
Okay, well, we'll come to those cards because they're an important part of the story, Horia. But if I can ask you to just take us back, when did Afghans start to go to Pakistan in large numbers? I know you yourself, you're in London now, you're of Afghan origin, but you yourself were at one point in Pakistan.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, Afghans started going to Pakistan and Iran, and they took refuge as a result of the Russia invasion in Afghanistan back in late 1970s and then in 1980s. And then the number has grown as the civil war broke back in early 1990s in Afghanistan, which followed by the first regime of the Taliban back in 1996. So the number of Afghan refugees were estimated. The documented Afghan refugees in Pakistan were just around 1.5 million, and undocumented refugees plus documented were estimated between 3 to 3.5 million refugees, which many of them have been living there for over 4 decades. But then, as Imtiaz already mentioned, also a significant number of Afghans fled to Pakistan after Taliban returned in August 2021.
Waleed, I'd like to take you even further back in time because we're talking about refugees here and have done so far in the discussion, but the tribes that live in Afghanistan and Pakistan and across the border, the border hasn't really been a fixed border, has it? There are tribes, Pashtun tribes, that live on both sides, and they have for centuries crossed between what is now Afghanistan and Pakistan. And the so-called border, or the frontier, was drawn up actually by the British when they were in charge of both countries. A man called Sir Henry Mortimer Durand drew up the Durand Line.
Hi, James. Thanks for having me. So, yeah, of course, Afghanistan and Pakistan share a huge and a history of cultural values, and they share language, religion, and many other values as well. So, of course, if they deport, the number of people that they have stated, it would be a humanitarian disaster because it will also ruin and destroy the relationship not only between the governments but between the people of Afghanistan and Pakistan, because as you stated that it is not ideal. It is an ideal line. It's not the real line. The real line could be a line between people, but people are sharing the same culture and values. I think if you go to both sides of the borders, you won't differentiate between the people that they are Pakistani or Afghani people. So therefore, there must be, some good ways, and also there must be the limitation of the deportation, and also these people should not be deported because they share these values.
So, Imtiaz, we've worked out then that we have these people certainly on either side of that frontier who share a language, who share a culture, who share a religion and share history. Given that backdrop, why has the Pakistan government in the last few years come up with what it calls its illegal foreigners repatriation plan? It says foreigners, but it's really focusing on Afghans, is it not?
Yeah, because Afghans, the dominant majority of aliens or foreigners living in Pakistan, has been the Afghan refugees and those Afghans who came to Pakistan in August 2021, and those who had been settling in Pakistan ever since the 1979 invasion of Afghanistan by the Russians. And now the issue at heart is not only the security, but Pakistan's own multiple political and economic crises. And those issues are then adversely impacted, are fueled by this narrative on the Durand Line. We don't call it Durand Line anymore. This is the border, as much border as there is border between Romania and Hungary, between southern Germany, Austria, and so many other states where people from the same ethnicity basically reside, and they don't have a problem. You know, if we were to go by the argument that we often hear from our Afghan friends, that would mean basically remove the barrier also in Southern Europe, in Eastern Europe between the countries, because they share the same values, the same culture. So the issue right now is that Pakistanis get offended a lot because even at the United Nations and even the current administration in Kabul often speak of an imaginary line instead of border, whereas this 2,560 kilometers long border is the internationally recognized boundary of Pakistan. And now to use that for political purposes, as recently did a number of Afghan ministers, is basically stoking sentiments, anti-Pakistan sentiments, and this is what eventually then...
Okay, Imtiaz. I mean, I get your point there, although the point about Europe, I think it's fair to say that within the EU, there are borders, but people are allowed to go across them because they have a shared culture and shared values. Let's just, though, focus on these ID cards, if you can, for us, Imtiaz. I know you're not a representative of the Pakistan government, but you are there in Islamabad, and perhaps you can explain this to me, because there are two different cards. There's one called the Afghan Citizen Card, the ACC, and there's another called the Proof of Registration Card, the POR. One was issued by the ACC by Pakistan government, and the other, the POR, both by the Pakistan government and by the International Refugee Agency, UNHCR. So many of these people did the right thing. They registered. They got the legal document to allow them to stay. Why are they being kicked out now?
Those registered with through the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees hold the proof of registration, and they are not being told to go back. The only, as I said in the beginning, the target audience, the target population is those 875,000 Afghans who had come to Pakistan with an Afghan identity. And in most cases, that ID card, which they were carrying from Afghanistan, which is called Tazkira, was not even genuine. So after 3-4 years, now the Pakistani government, beside its argument of security, it has decided to now scrutinize those Afghan citizenship cards, whether they were genuine at all. And now they are being sent back and being requested if they want to come back at all for education, for purpose, for medical or for businesses, then they should basically get a visa. So there is nothing unusual about it. Yes, there is of course concerns just because Pakistan is functioning as well or as badly as many other developing countries. There are systemic problems, systemic shortcomings, which adversely impact the target population in such situations. So we have a police which goes in overdrive, many of them are corrupt, and this is what creates problems for the people who are being told to go back and re-register themselves, get visa, and come back if they want to pursue business or education.
Horia, if you could pick up that point. First, Imtiaz said there that they're focusing now on the Afghan citizen card. My understanding is, though, that it will move later to the proof of registration card. Those people will also have to leave. But I think it's also worth pointing out, is it not, that we're talking about people, I mean, a lot of these are young people, and many of them were born in Pakistan. In fact, they've never ever called another place home. In fact, some of these people have never actually been to their ancestral homes in Afghanistan?
Yeah, so true, James. I just wanted to react on remarks of Imtiaz that unfortunately in the past 2 years, the Pakistani government have been deporting not only the Afghans that went after August 2021, but they are also deporting hundreds of thousands of Afghans who lived in Pakistan for over 4 decades. And many of them even had Pakistani government issued ID cards which recognized them as a refugee, and those cards were taken away. Their properties have been confiscated, and they were forced to sell some of their businesses while they were deported. So this is not just about undocumented Afghan refugees. And also, I think this is ridiculous to say that all 850,000 Afghans, which again, I think I have issue with this number that Imtiaz has gave, is, they all have fake ID cards. This doesn't make any sense either. Like what we also see is in the past, like it started in October 2022 when the Pakistani government started this campaign of forcefully deporting and returning Afghan refugees back to Afghanistan, regardless of their status, regardless of how long they stayed in Pakistan. Of course, I think Pakistan government is saying that they are doing it for the sake of their own national security, but at the same time, they cannot cover up their own failure in maintaining their security by blaming or shifting the blame on Afghan refugees, because the insecurity is lying elsewhere, not within the Afghan refugees. So if we keep, continuing with the same blame to say that, Afghans have been the source of insecurity, this has been exactly the same allegations that Afghans have been posting to Pakistan for the past 45 years, that Pakistan have been insecure in Afghanistan and supporting insurgent groups to fight inside Afghanistan, and supporting, whether it was during the Mujahideen against Russia, whether it was during the civil war with the support of the Gulbuddin Hikmatyar, or again with the support of the Taliban. So this has been always, the same blame game. But what is really important is that these refugees have crossed an international borderline and they entered into another country, and many of them have been recognized as refugees by the Pakistani government, which now those cards have been revoked and they were forcefully returned. Their lands and properties have been whether confiscated or they were forced to be sold at the peanut prices. And this is, I think, something that we have to really be very cautious of. At the same time, we are, as Afghans, we are thankful to the generosity and hospitality of Pakistanis and also Iranians who have been hosting Afghans for such a long period of time. And I am heartfully thankful to the generosity of the people of these countries. But at the same time, I think things could have been much, much better if there are a true policy of people who can stay in Pakistan, who have been living there for decades, who were born in Pakistan, but at the same time, people who are undocumented so they can be recognized under the Refugee Convention by the UNHCR.
Horia, you make a good point there. Iran is also the big neighbour, the other neighbouring country of Afghanistan, and it's also been kicking out Afghans. Waleed, how is all this seen in Kabul? Because I think back to 2021 when the Taliban took over, and I think most people who are watching those events, I was in Kabul just a week before the Taliban took over, thought that Pakistan was going to be the Afghan Taliban's best friend. Now, the turn of events, how is that seen in Kabul?
Before coming into your point, I do, due to all respect, I do not agree with the statement that the fellow brother has made about the Pakistan is facing economic challenges nowadays. Therefore, they are just deporting the Afghan refugees. So, Afghan refugees in Pakistan, they are working, they have businesses, they profit. The Pakistan's economy. Pakistan is not a European country which could facilitate as much opportunities as is needed for a human. They are working, they are just doing good profits for the Pakistan government. It's not burden on their economy. And why Pakistan didn't deport this amount of people 20 years before and in the past decades, because they were getting millions and billions of dollars from United Nations and other international organizations. Nowadays they have demands as well to have more and more money. And if they really help people of Afghanistan, they must help people of Afghanistan nowadays, and they should stop these deportations, because nowadays people of Afghanistan need help more than ever. We face a lot of economic and social challenges here, and there are many other political challenges and also educational challenges that half of the population are deprived from their basic rights. So therefore,
Okay,
if they really
let me put that point, the last point you make there, to Imtiaz. Imtiaz, women and girls that Pakistan is going to send across the border. They will not be able to work. They will not be able to go to schools. They will not be able to go to universities. And it's not just women and girls. The UNHCR put out a statement saying they're extremely concerned for Afghan nationals who may face a risk of harm upon return, ethnic and religious minorities, journalists, human rights activists, and members of artistic professions. Some have even said Pakistan is going to deport some of these people and they may be killed.
Well, I don't really think that they will be killed. I mean, I'm surprised, by the selectivity, by the exceptionalism that the UNHCR and other international agencies deploy. Nobody talks about the deportations from Iran. Nobody talks about women, girls being sent back. It's at least 1.5 million Afghans who have been sent out of Iran in the last year and a half. Having said that, nobody condones any forced repatriation or expulsion. I don't want to be misunderstood. We have all the sympathies for all these people. But when the status as a refugee or as a foreigner living in one country is taken as an entitlement, I think there the issue begins. And when the same people start talking negatively about the country that they have been living in for decades, that also creates another problem for those people like ourselves who have been advocating the right of naturalization, citizenship for all those young Afghans who have been born in Pakistan. But then because of the
let me bring in Waleed in Kabul on another point, because the Trump administration is worth, I think, bringing into the discussion, because some of these people, as we say, were people who were supporters of the old government, Ashraf Ghani's government, who went to Pakistan, and the US was going to approve some of these people for resettlement. I've seen the figure of 20,000 Afghans in Pakistan who were going to go to the US, and yet President Trump in January signed an executive order suspending all admission of refugees. I mean, should we be worried about these people currently residing in Pakistan?
Yes, why not? There are thousands of people who left their country and they were compelled. No one wants to leave their country. So they compelled and they went there, and it has been more than 3 years that they are there, and they have sold their homes and all the resources that they had, they spent. So they're waiting for their cases to go abroad. But in these difficulties, although like Donald Trump banned all the cases or suspended, and their future is uncertain. So on the other hand, Pakistan is pressurizing these people, although they have legal documents. So there are pressures in both sides. Although they face a lot of economic challenges as well. So it is very humiliating in this situation. At least our neighboring countries, a country like Pakistan, could behave friendly, and also they should be supportive with these people, because they are. And also there is a story in Peshawar. I think there was one guy. He was Afghan, and he committed suicide in the result of the ban of the cases. So because he faced a lot of challenges in both sides. So therefore, in this situation, Afghan people, especially those who have who are waiting to go abroad, they would be so disappointed if the Pakistan government is not supporting with them.
Okay, Horia, we mentioned the US, but of course, when the West was in Afghanistan, there were the NATO countries, 32 members currently in NATO. There are actually 42 countries that contributed to what was called the International Security Assistance Force, the NATO-led force. Given what's happening in Pakistan, do those countries, you think, have a moral obligation to start taking in Afghans?
Yes, absolutely. I have been always speaking about this to many other international agencies, and also in my meeting with some European members, and including US and others, that yes, this is maybe the time to also share some of the burden and responsibility with our neighboring countries, because if they can host millions of Afghan refugees for over 4 decades, so why not they can host a little bit more number of those refugees? Like, we also understand that when Imtiaz mentions about the economic and security situation in Pakistan, we absolutely recognize and acknowledge those challenges. But at the same time, I think what is really surprising is that how Pakistan started all at sudden with the deportation and creating an influx of refugees to the Afghanistan right after the Taliban came to power. And I think this is nothing more than a political move, because from one hand, they want to put pressure on Taliban because of they are providing sanctuaries to the PPTP inside Afghanistan. And at the same time, because many Western countries are now in the process of using Pakistan as a transit point where they are evacuating many Afghans who are working or they have been allying with the members of the international community. So in the past 2-3 years, this behavior have been turned into such a extortioning behavior, as Waleed already mentioned, because Pakistan and Iran both they were receiving quite a significant amount of support from UNHCR for hosting Afghan refugees, but now it is turning into a different level of, extortioning the international community for keeping Afghans, or otherwise we will deport them, otherwise we will do this, otherwise we'll do that. So simply what you're really witnessing in the past 2 years, Afghan refugees have become a bargaining chip for the Pakistani authorities versus the international community.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you to all of our guests today, Waleed Karyab, Horia Mosadiq and Imtiaz Gul. Remember, you can watch our programme every day of the year on television or on our app, or by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. What should we discuss next time? Your suggestions are always welcome. Go to our Facebook page, that's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story, or find us on X. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. I'll be back here very soon. From me, James Bays, and the team. Please stay safe and well. Bye-bye for now.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.